Good afternoon. We can start. I think we're going to have a sparsely populated class because a lot of people have an AP exam now or are just coming back from one. So I don't want to go too in depth into the next step of the process because people are going to be missing today. So instead, I'll introduce it to you so you guys can get a head start. But a lot of people are a little bit behind on the first couple of phases, and it's understandable because it's been a hectic week. But definitely your priorities should be getting caught up today. If you haven't submitted your research question, as priority number one. Otherwise, you have your discussion posts. Those are due at the beginning of the day tomorrow. And if you're good with that, you could begin the annotated bib, which I'll explain. But first up, it is independent reading. Start with that. I'll explain the annotated bib, and then we'll have independent work. Any questions for me before we get into reading? All right, perfect. Well, gang, you can put away your books. And we'll talk about these annotated bibliographies. So first thing I want to do is just show you an example of an annotated bibliography so you know what it is when I'm referring to one. Here you go. It should look familiar because you see works cited page at the top and you see one of these sources that's being cited. So really it's not that different from a traditional works cited page. The word annotated bibliography, or rather the phrase annotated bibliography, has bibliography in it, which is synonymous with a reference page, a works cited page, but one that is annotated. And if you annotate a short story, let's say, that might mean writing in the margin, but in general, annotation just refers to your own ideas that are being marked up on a text. So an annotated bibliography is a works cited page that has your ideas injected in it. And why are we doing this? Well, it's a pretty common practice whenever there's a research process being undertaken, really in any subject. If you were going to delve into a topic and write a paper on it, you ought to know what other people have said about it first. You ought to do your homework and know the best that's being said, the best understood about it, right? So this process is modeling that for you so you'll know how to make this in the future. It's also a way for me to see that you've understood these secondary sources. I said at the beginning of this unit, the research paper is a writing project. It's also a reading project. Okay, so this shows me that you've read these articles, you understood them, and you're able to articulate what you're going to take from them and put in your own paper. So it'll look something like this, your final project. I took this from one of my 12th graders, so yours will be on different topics, but you'll have the citation, and then right underneath, you'll have your own words, your own ideas about it. Your annotation paragraphs will be a little shorter than this, but same concept applies. So the nice thing about annotated bibliographies is it's a very streamlined process to make these. Really, it's just a works cited page with some extra steps. And you've made works cited pages before with the op-ed, and last year with your research paper and techniques of writing. You might be a little rusty on it, so I'll spend a little bit of time giving you a refresher, and I have some other resources that you could use on your own if you need additional clarification on what to do. First, let me just talk about the specific requirements for this annotated bib, though. All right, so in Canvas, you'll see that this assignment has been added. Click on that. A lot of this goes over what I just explained, but for you guys in particular, for this project, you need 5 secondary sources, plus your 1 primary source, which is your short story. For this, you could leave the primary source out. So just the 5, I would say 5 to 8 secondary sources. The annotations should be 1 complete paragraph, around 100 to 200 words in length, summarizing the main point of the article and any other interesting points, and explaining what ideas you're going to take from that and put into your own essay down the line. So how do you actually make this? Like I said, it's a simple step-by-step process. Once you get this down, you just kind of repeat it 5 times until you're done. So first thing you got to do is go to the library databases to find your articles. So we're not using Wikipedia, you're not using Shmoop or SparkNotes or any other outside sources. You don't need to go to Google to find your articles. There are good articles floating out there. They're hard to come by. It's a lot easier to just use the databases. So we're going to go there. You'll type in your story, and the databases will spit out about 100, 200 possible hits. You'll scan through that and look for articles that'll line up for your topic. So let's say you're writing about the things they carried and PTSD. That's your topic. Then look for articles that people have already written that line up with that. Those are the ones you are going to collect and store. Now, how do you store them and how do you cite them? Well, back in the day, you had to find the article and type out the citation yourself. Now Noodle Tools will do it for you. I know students tend to not like Noodle Tools. I think they tend to not like Noodle Tools because you've had to make oodles and noodles of note cards in the past. No note cards for this. If you want to do them, you can, but they're not necessary. So the great thing about Noodle Tools is you can click on an article, export it to Noodle Tools. Noodle Tools will do all the hard work of citing it for you. You just click a few buttons, it'll spit out the works cited page. From there, you just type in your annotations in the works cited page. And that's all there is to it. In a second, I'll go into a little more detail about how you would actually get to the library databases and how you export it, how you export an article to Noodle Tools, but just in a second. All right, so in total, this is going to be a 25-point quiz grade. Each annotation is 5 points. So I'm going to read your annotations. I'll say oh, okay, here's one. It's really well done, 5 out of 5, or it's a little sparse. There's too vague in this part. There's an error here, 3 out of 5, and I'll grade all of the annotations that way. And they'll be due on Wednesday, March 12th. So it takes a lot of reading to make one of these. If you wait to the last minute, you could do it. It just might be time intensive. What I would recommend is that you plan on doing one or two a day, maybe one over the weekend. If you do that, it should be pretty easy to knock this out. All right. Any questions at this point?
That's supposed to be May 12th?
Oh, yes, should be May 12th. Nice catch. Yes. You don't have to go back in time to submit it. Okay. So in this module, you'll also see here a link to the library literary criticism databases. You're going to hear me use the term literary criticism frequently. By that, I just mean the analytical academic articles about literature. Literary criticism is just like the technical term for it. It doesn't mean it's insulting the literature. It just means it's analyzing it, essentially. Criticism is just like the technical way that people refer to that. So there are 3 main databases that you'll use: literary sources, JSTOR, Gale Virtual Reference Library. These are just subsumed in literary sources. Most of what you'll need, you could find here. Like really, you could find all your sources just in literary sources. It's worth checking out JSTOR. JSTOR is like one of the gold standards for databases. You'll use it a lot in college. So some of the articles are going to be a little more advanced. They might be a little harder to read, but it's a great resource. Gale Reference Library is more of, it's kind of like an encyclopedia for literature. So you could also find, you'll find like one entry on your story here, but it's worth checking out too. So you find those, click on them, type in your story. And it'll probably be slow, but eventually a bunch of articles related to the things they carry will show up. As far as going on Noodle Tools, you could just type in noodletools.com, log in. You have to create a project first. If you're foggy on all that, then I won't go through it for everyone because probably a lot of you remember, but if not, no worries. I made a video that explains how to use it, how to make a project in Noodle Tools, how to export a source to Noodle Tools. So watch this and that should explain everything. All right, other questions? Can you use ProQuest? You can try, but ProQuest, I don't know if they have a lot of articles. I don't know if they have literature articles. My guess is not, but go ahead and look and let me know. So are you only grading the first 5 sources, even if you have more than 5 sources? I'll probably grade your best 5 sources if you do more than 5. Your best 5 annotations, I should say.